Brought to you by Pfizer.
In this video, you're going to see the future.
Breaking news. We've got a livestock there.
Hello, you Awakening Wonders. Thanks for joining me live today on April the 22nd for Stay Free with Russell Brand. You might be watching us on YouTube. You might be watching me right now on X. Maybe you saw Russell Brand is live. But, you know, why would you not be watching Alex Jones if you're on X? I mean, Alex Jones, when is Alex Jones not live on X? When is Alex Jones sleeping is what I want to know. But hopefully you are watching us on Rumble. Rumble is our home. We're most grateful to enjoy the grace and favor of Rumble. And thank you, Tim Pool and Tim Cast, for the raid. If you're a member of Tim Cast's community, thanks for getting on over here. Like Masha Hagen and Black Clover Digital and Paul Schrober, my friend, and Second Shot and My Chimp, all of you guys. Darth Diggity, Entech. If any of you are still shivering denizens, refugees of Bongino's army, you will find refuge here. If you feel lost and scattered, a vagrant in this world now, with no representative, no place to go in this murky and messy culture, come, huddled masses, join us here, a Brit in the United States of America, opposed to the establishment, an advocate for Jesus Christ, determined to honor him and his name, welcome him, conversation of all description. Get on over here. David from Oregon, does he ever close his shirts? He never closes his shirts. These shirts are open. My heart is open to you. I love you. If you're over here from Mug Club and Crowder, thank you. Welcome. Russell is peacocking. No, man, I ain't peacocking. Colorado Watch. Deport this fraud. You don't need to deport me. I'm a green card holder and a UK citizen. I'm a citizen of planet Earth. I'm an advocate for the great awakening that is coming. The paths are becoming straight. Two men will be toiling in a field. Only one will be taken. Only one will be chosen. But the question is it the same man? We got some stories for you today. It's going to knock your little socks off. It's going to twist your knickers. It's going to bend your bones. If you're watching us anywhere other than Rumble, get on over to Rumble. And if you don't have Rumble Premium yet, get Rumble Premium. I'll tell you why. It's an ad-free experience with additional content from me and Crowder and Glenn Greenwald and proper free speech advocates. Today, our focus is on a number of fascinating stories from my beautiful country, the UK. We're talking about Keir Starmer, who with the Supreme Court ruling telling you that, generally speaking, a penis means man and a vagina means woman. Keir Starmer is now confidently claiming that he can make his way across the minefield of gender. And if you're looking at some of those rumors and some of those videos on TikTok, you will know that Keir Starmer has experienced some complexity in those matters. DB0886, are you sick? Yeah, I had a little bit of a sore throat. I reckon it's that kind of, do you know, like that since COVID, you can say this now because it's on a US government website, since that man-made virus was released, did you notice that you sometimes get like colds or infections? Like, do you remember the first time you got COVID, particularly if you didn't get the vaccines, you're only dealing with COVID. You feel like there's this weird plasticity to it. You can feel it's a construction. You can feel its near demonic nature. Have you ever looked at parasites so up close? Have you ever seen depictions of demons in medieval art? Do you ever see the analogies and allegories provided throughout nature that there are demonic and parasitic forces that lurk and invade the world? Not only is Satan stalking like a roaring lion, sometimes he's just like a parasite in your lungs. Geo-Rich, fully vaxxed and boosted. Oh, yeah. Yeah, when they were releasing those booster shots over at Moderna that they tested on as many as 9 mouses, I was like, this has got to be safe. 9 mouses cannot be wrong. American Sun 76, 2 sexes, not genders. 2 sexes, not genders. And that's one of the subjects today. Are we living in the time of endless fracture? In the post-Rogan, Murray, Dave Smith debate, is the independent media space fracturing? Which way do you go? Dave Smith or Douglas Murray? Do you believe that there should only be a certain class that are able to espouse on matters where expertise might be beneficial? I mean, whether it's plumbing or heart surgery, and I can see a crossover in those two areas. You do want experts in certain areas, but when it comes to conversation, I don't know, man. Let anyone say whatever they want. Hemorrhoid hitman. No, it's not mice. Some people, barracky, mices. It's actually the correct plural for mouse is mouses. It's one mouse and two mouses. We're going to be giving you some crazy old news about Biden, but it's brilliant, this story, because it really shows you that if they were lying to you then, and when I say they, I mean Elizabeth Warren, what's her nickname? Let me know in the comments and chat what Trump dubbed her. If they were lying then, they're probably lying now. If we take on board what we learned during the pandemic era, we can likely deduce where their deception has bled into now. We're talking about the Australia lockdowns and we're learning about that. We're talking about Christ. We've got some more updates on Building 7 and former Speaker of the House Ron Johnson's revelations around that. Mooses, Mouse. Yeah, that's all good. Pocahontas. Yep, you're right, C. Giles. Good work. And interestingly, I love this. We're going to be talking about Larry David's spat with Bill Maher after an op-ed he put in the New York Times. A lot of you don't like Bill Maher, right? Because you think that he's, I don't know, sort of too liberal, too prevaricating. But what about those of you like me who love Larry David and again, I now have to contest that he wrote an op-ed in the New York Times about Bill Maher meeting Trump titled My Dinner with Adolf. If you're watching me on Locals, I love you guys over there. True Chimera, Thomas Beard, Jude Syke. Hello, all of you. Let me know what side you fall in the Larry David Bill Maher spat, or are you sort of out of that establishment world now? Before we get into our main stories, let's have a little bit of fun. Donald Trump. Look how Donald Trump words stuff, man. This is funny, right? Pope Francis is dead. God rest his soul. He wasn't the most popular pope in the world because he was somewhat reformist. Perhaps some would argue to the point of even undermining some of the key tenets of Christianity. Let me know in the comments and chat what you think about that. But now he's actually passed over. Look at how Trump talks about his funeral. Melania and I will be going to the funeral of Pope Francis in Rome. We look forward to being there. Is that a funny way to frame that? Like, look forward to it. Nice little funeral. Nice little Pope funeral. And Peter Cook, had he lived, would have been 90 just a couple of days ago. If you want to give yourself a laugh, look at the tapes of Dudley Moore and Peter Cook, and in particular, their Derek and Clive tapes, which are extraordinarily profane and drunk comedic musings, and in it they talk about a recently deceased pope. I don't know what pope that would have been who died in the 70s. Let me know in the comments and chat what pope died in the 70s. Like Peter Cook talks about seeing that pope laying there looking so fucking vulnerable. Gave me the fucking horn seeing him there laying in state. Beautiful. Second chance, Dudley Moore. I love that Dudley Moore. I love a Dudley Moore, born in Dagenham where my dad was born, where Essex meets East London. It's the fact that he did Arthur that made me up for doing it. Let's be honest, Russell is, no man, I'm not gonna. We're gonna have a great time today. Today's gonna be a crazy, wild time. So let's get into our stories. Trump, do you remember when Joe Biden's authority was superseded by the Easter Bunny? You know me, I've played the Easter Bunny in the movie Hop, but the Easter Bunny's authority is limited. The Easter Bunny should not have more authority than the President of the United States of America.
You remember the bunny with Joe Biden? Remember? You remember when the bunny took Joe Biden out? He's not taking Trump out. Anyway.
Well, Joe Biden, well, it's the Easter Bunny. We cannot possibly undermine the authority of the Easter Bunny. Not at Easter. Amazing. But we'll be talking more about Joe Biden. And remember when it was actually contraband to discuss Joe Biden's mental decline. Do you remember that? It was called a conspiracy theory. People that said, is he okay? Is he succumbing to senescence and senility, this guy? The legacy media pundit class lined up to claim that was a kind of conspiracy theory. Well, now Elizabeth Warren is laughing about it. But if she thinks that's funny, and they're willing to kind of acknowledge that they blatantly lied. What are they lying about now? Before we get into that, let's look at these Australian twin sisters blowing people's minds by talking in sync. What's fascinating about it is the legacy media don't even mention it. Like, the people that are interviewing them don't go, whoa, this is blowing my mind. Am I high right now?
Witnesses are recounting some of the drama that unfolded on the Sunshine Coast this afternoon. Two sisters have told how their mother and man raced to help when the carjacked SUV rolled on Steve Irwin Way, only to find the gun-wielding car thief emerge.
That's the most Australian thing I've ever heard. Steve Irwin Way. Of course they've got a Steve Irwin Way. Well, Steve Irwin, who sadly, God rest his eternal soul, was stingrayed out of existence, wasn't he? And that's what he would have wanted, because he lived his whole life aggravating alligators and bugging stingrays, but revering and loving nature. He's got his own way in Australia. At least Australia can still do that. They may have been a penitentiary when the British established that colony, and they may have turned into a penitentiary once more as a result of their draconian and ludicrous measures during the lockdown, and we'll be covering that a little later. But at least they got a sense of humour, and it's their kind of robust, blue-collar, working-class mentality that I love about Australia and Australians. Give us a shout in the Rumble chat if you're watching us from Australia right now, and let me know what you feel about your country's collapse into authoritarianism during the COVID pandemic era. And will Australia join the populist revolution, particularly now that it's official, globalism is dead? Klaus Schwab is resigning. Who are they going to replace him with? You're not going to believe it. They've found someone even worse. He may not have as much saliva, and he may not be perpetually stroking at the white pussy, but this guy sounds like he could do a pretty good job of being evil. We'll be talking about Klaus Schwab's replacement in a minute. But has Trump ended globalism through tariffs, rhetoric and personal authority? Before we get into that, let's look at the rest of this peculiar Australian story about twin sisters chiming. Two voices, two hearts, just one mind.
Thief emerging from the wreck. Here's some of what they had to say.
And one guy, he was up there with our mum, and he went up there.
Do you mind fucking shutting up? You always do this. Let me just fucking talk, for Christ's sake. Which one of us said that?
He went up there and he was coming back down towards us, and he goes, "Run, he's got a gun." And our heart started to pound, and I said, "Oh, Mum, where's Mum?" And
God, mate, that's too much, man. Imagine watching that just on microdoses of mushrooms. Imagine watching that on a gummy. How do you deal with? Oh no. Right, okay, tell me what happened in this carjacking. Well, Mum, whoa. Firstly, what the fuck are those hospital rabbit pajamas you're wearing? And secondly, talk one at a time. You're freaking me out, man.
And poor Mum was stuck up there, but apparently our brave Mum, she goes, "Are you all right?" Because he had all blood all over his face. And he goes, "I'll shoot you." She goes, "Hey, I'm here to help."
And Mum distracted him to make him look the other way, and he looked the other way, and Mum ran into the bush
behind the fence.
Like, I can't actually take on the information about the carjacking because it's too jarring. You know, when like you've got like one ear pod in and you can sort of hear something a second after you're saying it. I mean, are they doing that the whole time? Get a womb, you two.
In fence. And the guy goes to her, "I'll find you and I'll shoot you." All I was thinking about when we were running.
And they're not even saying we, are they? That's sort of outrageous. They're saying, all I was thinking about, hey, who are you? Have we been introduced?
And when we were running, I hope he doesn't fire. Yeah, we were so blessed.
How close to him do you think you were?
Well, see, he was up there and we were past our driveway.
Yeah. It's actually weird when they aren't in sync, when they start to disagree with each other.
Yeah. You don't think of all of that at the time. No, you just run for your safety.
Okay then, right, that's fantastic. I mean, it's extraordinary, the synchronicity there. I tell you, it seems that whoever's in charge of the PR of the Dem party could do with such an aligned piece of messaging, because they are out of control right now with some of the claims they're making about Biden and Biden's mental decline in a section I'm calling Old News. We'll be looking at that a little later. Wherever you're watching us, make your way ultimately to Rumble, where we stream freely every single day. Well, Monday to Thursday. We have Fridays off, as a matter of fact. Well, I got to live a life, baby. I'm under a lot of pressure. Let's have a look at this. This is a CNN poll on DEI and which demographic are in favour of continuing DEI and which demographics are in favour of ending it. Let me know in the comments and chat which way you think it's going to go.
See this. White women with at least a college degree, the only group of white voters that really kind of is on the left politically, aligned with progressive causes, democratic politics. Give you an example here. It's that DEI question, right here, that we asked about in our poll. We had two big statements we read to voters. Basically, do you want to continue DEI programs, or do you think they should be ended? And again, look at this divide here. White men, no degree, end it. White men with a degree, end it, they say. White women, no degree, end it, they say, by double digits. And then white women with a college degree, completely different by a nearly 40-point margin, they say, to continue DEI.
What is that extraordinary demographic that's been inculcated and coached into this peculiar perspective? In a way, it's like a new pagan cult. Who do you grant authority to? Who do you believe should have supreme power over your reality? Who determines who can be killed and who can't be killed? Who can be employed and who can't be employed? It seems that the people most vulnerable, most malleable are white women with college degrees. That's what it seems like, according to that poll, right? That they will take on board whatever they're coached into believing. The reason this is fascinating as an Englishman is in the UK, people like J.K. Rowling came out and from the beginning were like, this is crazy. You can't have the goals of feminism so recently achieved, i.e. safe spaces for women, protection for women in women's sports, and then have this new and emergent idea, which is by its nature a small subset of people, i.e. people that identify out of alignment with their biologically assigned sex, and have that interfere with, dilute and infract the achievements of feminism, because all of it will fall apart. It will seem like we don't know what we're talking about. And man, the way the culture turned on her, so extraordinary. We'll get into that in a moment because of the Supreme Court's ruling that there are two sexes, not genders. Yeah, you got it right in the chat there. And how Keir Starmer's navigating that fact. But first, I just want to take a moment to reflect on the divisions that are occurring in the independent media space in the wake of the Joe Rogan, Dave Smith and Douglas Murray debate, which by and large was confined to the subject of war, and in particular the Israel-Palestine conflict. What's grown out of it is a new analysis of who has permission and authority and the credentials to speak on important subjects. In short, has Joe Rogan got too much power and too much influence? Certainly he has for too much power and influence for a lot of people. If they could shut down Joe Rogan, they would. In fact, the new WHO treaty that many people have rebuked and pushed back on included the WHO having the right to censor information. And it was clearly an aspect of that treaty and proposal designed to prevent independent media commentators being able to oppose or gainsay official WHO medical advice. Particularly, of course, you will all recall, you lot should definitely take this vaccine. We've had time to clinically trial it. It stops transmission and there are no meaningful side effects, all of which prove to be completely untrue. It turns out you have to test things on more than 8 mouses to get verifiable and reliable information. Let's have a look at Sam Harris and Douglas Murray talking on Sam Harris's podcast about the necessity for experts and credentials. And let me know in the comments and chat where you fall. Dave Smith or Douglas Murray. Put DS or DM in the Rumble chat right now so I can get an idea what you lot are thinking.
You know, Dave Smith's non-expertise is a complete failure to appreciate the reality of jihadism and just what Israel is actually dealing with in Hamas.
I believe that it's also a strain of anti-Americanism and anti-Westernism, which is a belief that nobody in the world can do something wrong and bad unless we have somehow pushed them to it.
Yes, this is Noam Chomsky's gift to our politics.
Yes. It used to be on the left, and now it's on the right as well.
Yeah.
It's a profound and deep anti-Americanism, which I cannot sign up for, and will not. A profound anti-Westernism. I completely reject this, and I reject it for many reasons. But one is that riding shotgun with the claim that only the West, only America can lead anyone to do bad things is what you rightly identify, Sam, as the utter inability to recognize that some people seek utterly different things than we do.
Interesting point of intersection and agreement there. And I suppose when it comes to the subject of jihadism and the kind of Occidental wars, the war between Christendom and Islam, it's clear that Murray and Sam Harris are aligned. And I'm certainly not advocating for the decline of the West. I'm a Christian. I believe that our values have to be derived from supreme authority. But that sovereignty is something that's granted to all of us. That don't mean that I would grant equal authority to any individual when a particular requirement defined the situation, i.e. if I was doing experiments on 8 mouses to, for example, prove the efficacy of a Moderna booster shot, I'd want verifiable, bona fide, Stanford or Harvard educated scientists conducting those tests. But the fact was that during the pandemic period, for example, the idea that an expert class was leading us was utilized to create homogeneity and absolute control. Totalitarianism often relies on the idea that there's this aristocratic class of people that have done your thinking for you. Every time they advocate for foreclosing your free speech, for smearing free speech advocates, generally what they say are things like follow the science or look at the credentials of this individual. That ain't to say that there's not a lot of insanity on the internet, and Lord alone knows I've contributed to it at times, because when you're pontificating and rambling on hours and hours a week, of course, many times you inadvertently say something ludicrous and ridiculous. In fact, you could say that when something correct is undertaken and stated, it's just that, it's the proverbial stopped clock being right twice a day. But the principle of free speech is so sublimely important because it relates to supreme authority. Who has the right to censor and control? Who has the power and authority to say which speech is valid and which speech is not valid? And I just can't help but observe that when this new and emergent class of experts, whether it's a brilliant orator and journalist like Douglas Murray or an excellent commentator like Sam Harris, when they discuss these things, it's generally in order to ensure that their position is further undergirded with some kind of technocratic authority. That we are correct, and I don't want to listen to sort of self-appointed historians or occasional comedians having a view on the Middle East. I don't want to tolerate it, because what if those views are too popular? Anyway, man, it's interesting and it's going to go on. Let me know what you think in the comments and chat about that. Before we discuss that in more detail, along with a whole host of subjects, the death of globalism, that's because Klaus Schwab has resigned. Klaus Schwab is dead. Long live Klaus Schwab. We're going to be talking about Larry David and Bill Maher spat, Australia lockdowns, Building 7. Before any of that, Keir Starmer. But first, wherever you're watching us, here's a quick message from one of our partners. We'll be back talking about Keir Starmer and 2 sexes right now. Tax day has passed. You're in trouble. The government wants your money. Oh no, half of the time you're working, almost, it's for the government, whatever crazy country you're in. But this is Tax Network USA, who will help you by helping you navigate the complexity of your tax affairs. Do you know that the IRS, they're breathing down your neck, they're clammy-handed, they're all over you? If the IRS had a Diddy party, who knows what the baby oil would stink of? Tax Network USA are to help you get out of that Diddy party and back to freedom. With over 5,000 new tax liens filed daily and tools like property seizures, bank levies, wage garnishments, the IRS are applying pressure at levels we haven't seen in years. Increased administrative scrutiny means collections are moving fast. They are ramping up enforcement. If you wait, it will only get worse for yourself, like eczema, warts, acne, I don't know, but something that you should tend to immediately. Toenails. Are you a self-employed business owner? Yeah. Even if your books are a mess, they've got it covered. Tax Network USA specializes in cleaning up financial chaos and getting you back on track fast. Also, if you're that lady that had a chimpanzee for a pet, but then the chimpanzee turned against her, they'll help you. Not with a chimp. That's your problem. You shouldn't have tried to have a chimp as a pet. But your taxes, they're going to be fine. Tax Network USA. It's not too late to regain control. Your consultation is completely free. And acting now can stop penalties, threatening letters, lies, and surprise levies before they escalate. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/brand. So, call the number on the screen now or click the link to take advantage of this. Let's face it, necessary. It's not a special offer. You've got to pay taxes. Sort it out. Hey, yeah, sort your taxes out, you lunatic. The government wants your money. The government wants confiscatory abilities. The government wants you compliant. The government wants you to trust experts. The government wants you to do as you're told. Heaven forbid that you should start accessing a divine power yourself personally, that the temple curtain is torn asunder, that you derive that authority directly from the Lord. Here, I'll take that, sweet honey. Thanks, beloved Jake. I'm just giving myself a shot of the good stuff to smooth the old larynx. Let's get it working because, hey, Sensitive Hearts in the locals chat. Hey, Critical Thought. Hey, Trish McLeod and Second Chance. Yeah, F the government. We've got so much to talk about, guys, and we're going to stay with you for a bit longer on... actually, I can't even undo it. I'm weak as a kitten. Here we go. Let's take a little spoonful of this honey. Oh, look at it. Farts itself out into the spoon. There you go, you dirty thing. Right, let's have a bit of it. Do you think this is going to work? That's nice. There's that baby oil, says Prolifuzz. I was given this in just a gift bag at a Diddy party. It seems to be quite good. Nice one. All right, baby, let's do it. Now, look, you lot, you're going to love this. We talk a lot about Keir Starmer on this show because I'm British and he's in charge of all of Britain. I find him fascinating as well because he was in charge of the Crown Prosecution Service at a vital time. For example, he would have been at the CPS, that's our equivalent of the Attorney General, like he was the head of the CPS, when Julian Assange was being held, you've got to say illegally, for 10 years in a variety of ways. 5 years in a maximum security prison, Belmarsh. 5 years at the Ecuadorian embassy. What was going on with Julian Assange? First of all, he was accused of rape. Then they sort of said there was a variety of ways that he was an enemy of the state, the United States in particular, but ultimately he had to be released as a result of some kind of plea bargain. And I pray that Julian Assange is happy with his family in Australia. It was a disgrace that he was ever incarcerated. All he ever done was embarrassed the powerful with his reporting. Keir Starmer's a fascinating figure because he seems to be incapable of being straightforward and straight up. Even when people were talking about the ongoing trans and gender debates and it got complicated in the cultural space, Keir Starmer flip-flopped around all over the place. No, I think there's 9 genders, isn't there? Now listen, now the best way to get to the bottom of this is to take a quick AIDS test. He took an AIDS test like about 2 weeks ago as if it was 1985. I mean, what are we talking about? And why, let me know in the comments and chat, would Keir Starmer need an AIDS test? He's happily married, isn't he? I mean, as long as you're just contained within your marriage, you're not having blood transfusion, using IV drugs, how would you even get AIDS? Let me know the top 10 ways that people get AIDS. Let me know in the comments and the chat. Curious tangential note there. Keir Starmer here, post the Supreme Court judgment, says that women are adult females. Right? This just in. So let's have a look at that. And then let's look at the various ways that Keir Starmer went backwards and forwards on the trans issue. It's pretty interesting to see how he fluctuates, the mad peristalsis of Keir Starmer's views and opinions. He's a little uptight about it. I don't know why. I don't know what's getting to that guy. Let's have a look at his reaction to the Supreme Court ruling.
We saw protests this weekend in Bristol, as Paul mentioned, about the Supreme Court ruling. Do you believe a trans woman is a woman?
Look, I think the Supreme Court has answered that question.
So you don't believe a trans woman is a woman?
Look, a woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. So I think it's important that we see the judgment for what it is. It's a welcome step forward. It's real clarity in an area where we did need clarity. And please...
Guidance, clarity. curious prevarication around this issue for someone who had a different perspective earlier on. Now, in a way, there has been a cultural debate around the subject. No one can deny that. You can have your personal perspective, but you have to acknowledge there's been a conversation around it. What I want to draw your attention to is this is a person in a position of leadership and authority. If a person in a position of leadership and authority doesn't have a set of principles and values that they can hold to, particularly in testing times, particularly in storms, then how can you rely on them? How can you rely on him when it comes to, say, Ukraine and Russia and how that war is funded and whether or not British taxpayers should fund that war? How can you trust him when it comes to subjects like agriculture in the UK? British farmers feel like they're being betrayed by the government, and he claims that he's supporting farmers. How can you trust him on fuel bills, where he said that there were going to be reductions and preservations and protections for vulnerable people, but then changed when he was in office? How can you trust him on matters of law and order? How can you trust him on the pandemic? How can you trust his government and the deals they do with companies like Moderna? How can you trust him when it comes to the way that Jeremy Corbyn, his predecessor in the Labour Party in the UK, seemed to have been dispatched with the aid of deep state forces, in particular MI5. He was smeared and attacked. How can you trust Keir Starmer at all when he's clearly not a straight shooter or a straight speaker? How can you trust Keir Starmer to be straight? How can you trust him to be straight with you? How can you trust Keir Starmer to be straight?
I'm pleased it's come about. We need to move and make sure that we now ensure that all guidance is in the right place according to that judgment.
What are your words for the trans community who are worried about what this could mean for them?
Well, look, I think it is important that we have clarity about the law. That's what the Supreme Court is there for. So obviously that's an important and welcome step, and we go forward from there.
I don't think he's a bad person. I think he's probably, well, you know, this is what I believe, is that we're children of God, and God's grace is within us all. He that is within us is greater than he that is in the world. I believe that many institutions have fallen to what I'd have to declare as a kind of evil, but my declaration is certainly secondary to Ephesians, that tells us plainly that the world has been captured by dark forces. It's again and again reiterated in Scripture that the reason we have to be careful of worldliness is because worldliness is fallen and by its nature corrupt. And you will never see that more clearly than watching politicians prevaricate, whether it's Keir Starmer or Elizabeth Warren, who we've got coming up. We'll see how they appear to have been captured by a dark ideology. These are confusing times indeed. That's why you need certainty from your leaders. You need leaders that have certain principles for which they're willing, I believe, to die. You know, that might seem like a bold claim these days, but if someone's going to be in charge of a nation of 60 million people and speaking on behalf of millions, declaring billions of dollars or pounds of aid for ongoing wars that might be ended, don't you feel that those people should have a kind of certain anchoredness, authority, authenticity and integrity? And do you see that in Keir Starmer? Let me know in the comments and chat. Even with this issue of the Supreme Court ruling that there are two sexes, it's a matter where he struggled to find clarity. As a child of God, I love him and I pray for him, but as the leader of the UK, I feel like we're all in serious trouble.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right.
In 2021, you said that MP Rosie Duffield was wrong to say that only women have a cervix. In the next year, asked to define a woman in an interview in The Times, you said a woman is a female adult. In addition to that, trans women are women. Later that month, you said in an LBC phone-in, well, you just simply refused to answer the question of whether a woman can have a penis. And finally, in 2023, you said that for 99% of women, their gender is completely biological, and of course, they haven't got a penis.
So a woman can have a penis?
Look, I'm not... I don't think we can conduct this debate with... You know...
Sorry, have I offended you in something?
No, it's just... I just...
Look... A woman can't have a hostage, a sausage. A penis now, a lady penis, that's the one that goes inside like a pocket. I've seen them on the... Ladies, those are the ones that's got two eyes here. Now, if you're worried about AIDS, because it's 1980, Mark Ullman, Freddie Mercury, top of the hit parade, you've done a line of the devil's dandruff, you've been out and about, you've had some backdoor wonderment, you've had a bit of the old stink fun, you've had a bit of the old in-out, you've given yourself dippings, you've given yourself the gravy up the tip, leadership. You've turned your purple brown with wonder. If you've had a little bit of that type of fun, get yourself a quick AIDS test. Little thing down the pipe hole. It don't hurt. I've done it myself. Dear old Keir Starmer, child of the living Lord, I would ask that he find some authority and authenticity and an integrity in himself. This is what happens when people are in positions of leadership as a result of, I would say, top-down, international, globalist agenda being played out across all of our nations, bleaching away all of our personal sovereignty based on rules and principles dreamt up in Davos. Keir Starmer, like Justin Trudeau, like Kamala, like all of the cipher class of bureaucratic managerial politicians, isn't in need of our criticism and condemnation, but is in need of our prayer. That don't mean that we should obey them. Of course we have to disobey them. Of course we have to recognise that their authority is derived from dark places, but that don't mean that they're dark and broken and hopeless. I pray for Keir Starmer. I pray that he finds within himself the personal bravery to step forward and step out and be who he truly is. And I pray for the people of the UK that we get the government that we deserve, which means in a democracy that the voices of the people are heard, that the people are informed by reliable media, that if people are against immigration, then you've got to hold referenda on that. If people want more authority in their communities, then they've got to give them that. If people want inquiries into rape gangs and grooming gangs and that culture, you've got to grant them that. If people want their country back, you have to give them their country back. And I would say that Keir Starmer might be the arse end, the fag end. We say in Britain, fag end means, cigarette. Like the fag end of globalism. Globalism is in decline. Even the WEF acknowledges that, with Klaus Schwab's replacement being, well, maybe yet more draconian. But what I would say to you is this, my friends, that Keir Starmer's era is coming to an end. This is a new populist moment. And if that populist moment can be aligned with supreme principles, if this revival that appears to be happening in the UK and the US can be embraced open-heartedly, if all of us accept that we are broken, that we have no authority except the authority granted to us through him, then we might truly build a better world that's not just a new repoing of demagoguery, new false idols, new reverence and worship of leaders. Although, hey, having strong, bold, confident political leaders is no doubt a good thing, then there might be hope for us. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and the chat. If you're watching us on YouTube, we're out here, baby, and you're going to want to join us over on Rumble because we got some amazing stories. You're going to love this stuff about Elizabeth Warren and the way they lied to us about Biden's mental decline is brilliant. Click the link in the description. Get on over to Rumble. We're going to be talking about that, Australia COVID lockdowns, Larry David versus Bill Maher, so much more. Get on over to Rumble. Before that, here's a quick word from one of our partners. Coffee should mean something, like 1775 does. I don't go anywhere without a bag of this, and sometimes I smuggle it illegally up inside my own back pocket, my special crown pocket, what God give me in the back door. Up it goes, 1775. And if there's a burst in the bag, all the better. Free colonic. 1775.